Hello there everyone, I'm Christina at CSLdesigns and today I'm going to show you how to make this cross wire work ring. So this is what mine looks like here. So as you can see, it's a pretty simple and delicate design, but then the beads that we've added in, we then added these little crosses with wire on top of them to give this nice effect. It looks a little something like this on. So as you can see, pretty nice and delicate, but then we just have a purple colour with the beads, but then contrasted with those wire lengths crossing on top of them. That gives it a really nice effect. So this is the ring that I made. Previously I've made a bracelet. First of all was the first design that I made using this technique here. You can see the same crossover effect, and then those beads just adding that purple colour. And then also I made some earrings more recently, again to match with the same effect. Obviously these don't match in the materials I've used, but you can easily do that. So I now then made the ring to match these as well, so you can really make a full set now. So if you want to learn how to make the ring, then keep watching this tutorial. So it's these materials here that we're going to need. First of all, I have two different gauges of regular round silver coated copper wire. The first gauge here is a 0.8mm. This is going to be the base wire, the strength of the ring. Then here I have a 0.4mm, and this is going to be the weaving wire around the base wire. And then as for the beads, we need some 4mm rounds. Now these specific ones that I'm using are some blue quartz gemstone rounds, but obviously you can really use whatever you want to, as long as the beads can go on to the base wire. Now do check out the description box below the video because I'm going to have the material list and links down there as well. So let's get all the materials ready and let's get started. So then we need some lengths of our wire, and what I have here first of all is a length of my 0.8mm of about 30 centimeters. So this is the base wire. And then we need a length of the 0.4mm here of about 80 centimeters, and this is going to make the ring band. And we then also need another length of the 0.4mm of about 20 centimeters. This is going to make those crosses around the beads. So then we need to start out with the length of our base wire, and then what I've done is make sure first of all that the wire is nice and straight so we can get the beads on, and then I've added my 4 beads here in about the middle of the wire, so we have more or less equal lengths on either side. And then what we need to do now is actually shape this base wire before we can then start weaving. So to do that, I'm going to get my ring mandrel out here, and then also that's going to help us with the sizing, because we then need to shape this length of wire with the beads on. So what we need to do is make sure that the beads are, like I said, roughly in the middle, and then you also want to make sure that there's a bit of space in between them so they don't sit really close to each other, but there's some spacing like that. Then I'm going to put the beads behind my ring mandrel and then start shaping them against the ring mandrel, and bring the 2 lengths of the wire here around the sides. And now we kind of flip it around a bit, because you will probably find that the beads are moving around a bit. They're not going to stay obviously in the exact position that we put them. We just kind of keep maneuvering. You just want to make sure that you keep that spacing, because that's what we need then to add in the crosses as well. Now what we then need to do is bring those 2 tails of wire around the back or the front of the ring mandrel so they end up laying flat next to each other like this, so crossing over basically. And what you want to make sure to do is, the sizing isn't too crucial right now, but obviously keep it in mind. I like to go about 1 size up, because obviously we're going to be adding weaving to the ring band, so make sure to push those beads close to the ring mandrel and then shape the 2 tails so they come back up towards the beads just like that here, because then this is now the basic shape in place, and it looks a little something like that. So we have those beads sitting there at the top, and they're still going to be moving around a bit, but don't worry too much about that, because then we need to start doing the weaving now. So we then need to grab the long length of our weaving wire that we cut ready, and then we need to first of all attach this to the shape that we've made so far. So I'm just going to start from one side of the beads there, because we then need to weave across this whole area, which is then going to make the ring band. So I'm going to just take towards one end of my weaving wire, leave a bit of a tail, just a long enough length so if we need to we can still do a couple of rounds towards the end of it. Just leave that little bit of a tail, hold on to that, put it behind the 2 base wires there that are lying next to each other, and then you want to start weaving. So attaching this weaving wire, and we're going to go straight away into the weave that we're going to do. So you can start down a little bit and we can always push the weave up. So what I'm going to do is wrap it around. So even though this is 1 length of base wire and it's creating this shape, just kind of treat it as 2 separate base wires there. I'm going to then bring the weaving wire down between the 2, and because of how mine is here, I can just bring it out through that open end of wire like this, which then wraps around that bottom one by itself. And then what I always like to do as well is, especially because right here at the beginning everything is a bit loose, so it can be a little bit fiddly, is just to help push your wraps together with chain nose pliers here. And then keep holding on to that tail. Then I bring the weaving wire across the top of both of them and then down through the ring band, and then pull the rest of the weaving wire all the way through. And obviously, as you can see, and like I said, it can be a bit fiddly because these wraps now don't want to go too close because it's a bit hard to get in there with my fingers, so that's where the chain nose pliers really help to push them together. And then we need to wrap around the top one by itself, and because I have that open end, I can just go through there, which then brings it up between the two base wires there. And then we go down through the ring band again to wrap around the top base wire by itself. So obviously now the weaving wire is attached, and also, like I said, we've gone straight into making the weave that we want. In this case, here's a diagonal weave. And this now, where the weaving wire is coming straight down behind, is one full round of it. So we just want to now keep doing this. So that just means, in this case here, go down between the two. So wrap around the bottom one by itself, then go over the top of both of them to come down through the ring band, pull your weaving wire all the way through, and then again I want to come up between the two, so just bring it through the open end there, and then again down between the ring band to wrap around the top one by itself. And because it's still fiddly, I haven't got that much work done yet, I like to still just push my wraps together to really make them nice and tight like that, so we get a nice and even weave. So what I recommend that you do is a couple of rounds like this, because that's going to really secure the weaving wire in place, and just so we get a little bit of work done. And like I said, you don't have to start all the way up by the beads, because we can just do a few rounds here and then we can push it up. So now I've done about 4 rounds of the weave here, and I don't want to do too much because it's going to get really hard or almost impossible to move. So what I like to do is just do these few rounds, and then that's where I then want to make sure I push this up to sit closer to the beads. And again, it still doesn't have to be 100% perfect, because that's also why I left this tail in case we did need to make a couple more rounds when we have gotten all the way around. And just push that up there. And then also, before I move on, I want to make sure as well that the size is staying right. That's why we want to make sure to double check that now. So again, I'm going to get my ring mandrel out and put that through, and then bring it down to the size that you want it to be, the size that we're working on, and then make sure that it's sitting there and fitting properly. And then you just want to pull on these tails if you need to tighten anything up, because the shape can have opened up a little bit. So rather make sure to deal with that now, because the more you weave around this ring band, the less we're able to adjust it. So make sure, do a few more wraps here, and then just double check it again before then weaving all the way around. So do that, and then like I said, weave all the way around here, all the way to the other side, until basically the end of the weave on this side again meets up on this side of these beads there. So I now made it all the way to the other side with my weave. So we've now weaved the whole ring band, and I've ended up still having some space between the end of the weave and that bead on this side here. And also you can see I have some space between the beads as well, because we still need to make sure we have space to finish off these base wires, but also add the decoration to these beads themselves. But then now what I want to do is actually finish off these weaving wires here. So all you want to do is the same on both ends. I'm just going to bring it around as if I was doing another wrap, but instead of kind of doing the wrap, I'm just going to bring it over there, just as if we're wrapping around that bottom one by itself. Then I'm going to cut off the excess, but making sure I leave just a little short tail, something a bit like that, so that if you run your finger over it there, you can feel it, and you're going to have a little bit of the end of the wire sticking out. So obviously we need to get rid of that, so I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and squeeze that down, and then that tucks it in between the base wires as well. You can get it right in there, and then that nestles that away so we don't have that end. Make sure you feel it with your finger. If you can still feel it, you need to tuck it in a bit more. If you can't, then it's fine. And obviously you do that one, and then also just do the same on the other end there as well. And now I then actually want to finish off these base wires as well. So what we're going to do is, again, the same on both sides. I'm just going to take one length here, and it's coming on one side of the ring band. What I then want to do is open it up a little bit, and then start to bring it down towards the ring band, and then end up pushing it through the ring band like this here. Just push it all the way through to the opposite side, and also just make sure I take my chain nose and just flatten this out, because obviously it kind of wants to twist with it a little bit, and then I make sure to push it as far down so it sits right above the end of the weave there. And then I just want to be able to finish it off. We need to wrap it around a couple of times, so that's basically wrapping it around the other base wire that's right next to it, making sure they're nice and tight, and then to push it through the ring band again, come out on the other side. And again, just making sure that this doesn't twist too much, so the ring band stays lying flat like that. And then wrap it around again, just above the previous wrap. Come down on this side here. And then we can just make sure to push everything together if we need to. So there's as little space between the wraps as possible. So just like that. And again, just double check that this is nice and flat, so it hasn't twisted towards the inside of the ring band. So that's wrapped around now, and this is nice and secure. So what we can do is finish this off. So towards this side here, I'm going to cut off the excess with my flush cutters, just like that. And then again, make sure, because you cut off that wire, that we just squeeze the little end down so we can't feel any rough edge from the end of that wire there. So there we go. That's now finished off on that side. Obviously now flip it around and then just do the exact same thing on this side as well. So now we want to get the short length of the point formula wire that we got ready, because that's what we need to use to make those little crosses, you could say, on the beads. So I then have my ring ready here for that last little step. So what I'm going to do is put the length through the ring band, so the middle ends up about there behind that base wire, just before any other beads there, so just towards one of the sides. It doesn't really matter which one, and you can just measure it here, put the ends together gently to find out where that middle is, and then keep it behind there. Then to wrap it around, first of all, I'm going to take the one side, wrap it around that base wire, and then bring it back through the ring band again, and then pull it nice and tight and push it all the way down. Just smooth out your lengths. Then I'm going to bring down the first bead, make sure to push it down so it pushes the wrap there nice and tight together. Then I'm going to start with one side here, so I'm just going to take my right one first of all, doesn't really matter which one. Then I'm going to bring that across the top of the bead so it crosses over like that, and you can see here it's still loose, so it can still move a bit, but just keep pushing it down into place. Bring that over the top of the bead, and then on the other side of the bead, back through the ring band again, just like that. And then in between these two beads here, make sure to do that extra wrap around that base wire. So through the ring band again, and then we have that length of wire kind of crossing from one side to the other, but on top of the bead. Make sure we push it down again there, it's kind of just moving up a bit. And then push down the next bead. Again, you can use the beads as well to help push things close together. Then bring the same length of wire over the top of that one in the same direction. Go through the ring band and then wrap an extra time around that base wire after the bead. Just like that. Push them nice and close together. And don't worry too much about if they sit straight just yet, because we can always adjust that. As you can see there, you can push them to sit nice and straight, but we can do that towards the end. Push down the next bead. You just keep going like this until you've done it with all 4 beads here and you're at the end of them. And then around the final one, just going to go over that in the same way. And then we just bring the wire so it comes around the very last little part of that base wire after the bead, but before the other wraps there. And then I just want to wrap around again, making sure I pull this weaving wire to sit in between there. Pull it nice and tight down, because that's going to then, you could say, trap that weaving wire in place. And then make sure that's wrapped around that couple of times, because we need to make sure it's going to be nice and secure when we finish this off. So what I just want to do before I finish it off, I just want to actually look through the wraps already, and kind of just align them, because when you do that the wire might move a little bit, so I want to make sure they're pretty nice and straight for now. And then this length is actually done being used, so make sure that that last wrap is nice and tight. Then I go in and cut off the excess, use my flush cutters here, and towards the side, so kind of towards where the final wrap ends, cut it off. Use your chain nose to make sure to squeeze that down, and I like to kind of squeeze down the end of the wire and then roll it a little bit in the direction that the wrap is actually going, because that really kind of tucks it away. There's something like that there. If anything's moved, you can just move it back into place, and then just make sure that it is completely squeezed down. So that's the first side done. So you can see that's kind of the first half of the crosses. Then we'll go back to the beginning again, take the other length, and we'll basically do the same thing, but just from the other side. So this is coming from the left, cross over that first bead, over the other length of wire that's already crossing over it. So we get that cross there, little cross or little X, whatever you want to call it. And then in between the beads here, we do that extra wrap, which then just wraps on top of the first wrap we did with the other length, and then move on for the next bead, and you just go through and do the same thing with all of them again. And when you then reach the last bead, make the cross on that as well. And then same principle, we then need to finish off this length of the weaving wire. So you just want to wrap it after the bead there, but in between that and the wraps with the base wire, where we finish them off there, and kind of just fill in that space. So these wraps again just go on top of the previous ones, and you just cut off the excess, and then you're able to use your chain nose plier, so you can see that it's kind of sticking out, but then to squeeze it away, to tuck it away. So obviously it's also not going to catch or scratch on anything like clothes or hair, with obviously how you're wearing it and moving your hands, but also that it doesn't irritate your skin in any way. Just tuck that away, make sure you feel it. If you can't feel it, then that's fine, but then there you basically have your finished ring. Now what you can just do is make sure, because it can kind of change a little bit as you've been working with it, make sure that the shape is still nice. So if you need to just reshape it, if it's gone a little bit out of the round shape for a ring, you literally can just reshape it on your ring mandrel, and then otherwise it's ready to wear. So this is what the ring looks like. And you then have all those crosses there embellishing the beads. So obviously we have the nice colour from the beads, but then the contrast of the crosses with the wire on top of them. So it gives this nice effect. So it's a pretty simple and delicate ring as well, and pretty easy to make. You see the technique of it, and you just get that really nice effect of the crosses, which then obviously makes it a little bit interesting. And also you can easily make this to match the other pieces that I've done previously with the same cross technique over the beads. Pretty simple technique, so bracelet and earrings. So feel free to check out those tutorials, they're going to be linked in the description box below. But otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this one. Check out my channel as well, I have loads of other tutorials. But thank you so much for watching it.